Thank you for tuning in to a new series of Time Traveler's Handbook videos. This video series we are going to be covering Palm Springs, the Hulu exclusive film released in 2020. So if you have not watched it yet, go ahead and watch it because there will be spoilers for Palm Springs all throughout these episodes. And I promise it's not as much of a commitment as Dark is, so if you have Hulu, go and watch it, and then come back and listen to these episodes. Palm Springs is kind of a curveball of a film. I didn't expect to see such high-quality time loop content out of a Hulu original, quite frankly, but this one really stuck out as kind of a take on the Groundhog Day style of loop, with a couple of extra elements added in there to make it more interesting. Let's get right down into the structure of Palm Springs so we can talk about the most interesting bits of the time travel that happens in this show and kind of what we can take away from this, what we can learn about time travel from Palm Springs. So Palm Springs is about multiple characters. Their names are Niles, Sarah, and Roy. And all of them are trapped in a time loop, resetting the day to the beginning of November 9th in Palm Springs, California. There are two conditions under which the day will reset. The first condition, and the condition that will get one trapped in the time loop, is for the individual to walk into a specific cave that has this sort of amber-colored vortex within it. Once stepping inside, they will wake up wherever they woke up at the beginning of that day. The second method is to be unconscious, in which case you will immediately wake up at the beginning of the day as well. This can come as a result of you falling asleep or from dying, but in the end it does not matter what method you take to getting knocked unconscious, as it will always result in starting the loop over. One interesting thing to note about this time loop is that if you stay conscious, you will continue to live as if you were not in a time loop. There's one case where Sarah travels all the way from Palm Springs to Austin, Texas without falling asleep, but upon the next time she does fall asleep, she ends up back in Palm Springs. This is atypical of this kind of time loop because the day typically will reset at the end of the day no matter how conscious you are at the end of it. The best explanation that I can come up with as to why this is that the vortex that is perpetuating the loop cares about their consciousness, and it may have something to do with their mind being trapped within the loop rather than the body. This makes a little bit more sense when you look at what the main characters had to do in order to break the loop. Sarah discovers a method for breaking the loop after many loops spent learning quantum physics and doing tests on a goat. If the individual traveling through the cave blows themselves up in between the time that the vortex takes them in and the moment that they start the day over, which is about 3.2 seconds, they will escape the loop. Sarah doesn't know what escaping the loop really means though, as it's unclear whether you will simply die on the way out of the loop or if you'll end up safely on the other side. All that she knows is that she tested it on a goat and the goat is not looping anymore. In the climax of the film, Sarah and Niles go through the vortex together, blow themselves up, and successfully escape the loop. My theory as to why this works is this. The film kind of tries to explain how this happens and why this makes sense, but it kind of falls short on explaining something that actually does make sense. So my theory as to why this works is this. The act of going through the vortex will start a process, and your mind will begin to transport back through time to the version of yourself at the beginning of the day. But by disrupting that process in the middle, either your mind no longer has a destination to go to, or the mind has been pulled out of the process of traveling back. It's left ambiguous in the movie whether or not the characters immediately make it out and are just left right in front of the cave where they were before, or if they are sent to the next day where they wake up in their own minds again. In any case, they made it to the other side. A facet that I find interesting about this is the prospect that some people can leave the loop and other people can stay in, as we can see in the case of Roy, who is still looping when the others leave. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our next episode when we talk about what happens when multiple people loop together. The structure of the loops is pretty sound though, in that literally everything resets except for the things that have gone through the cave. There's no regression and there's no taking things in between loops. The only change between loops is the minds of the loopers that re-inhabit the old bodies. And there is a way to break out of the loops that doesn't have to do with simply doing good deeds or something else completely arbitrary. That is explored in the film in a parody to films like Groundhog Day and shown to be a foolish method to try to get through. The only unexplained feature of the loop is how it was created, but we can pretty much infer that a natural cosmic phenomenon comes pretty close to what the truth actually is. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I hope you enjoyed. Next time, we're going to start our discussion on the consequences of having multiple people looping in the same time loop at the same time. As always, thank you for listening.